The Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. Go to CarrieLutz.com and sign up for 30 free micro trainings on financial survival.
1490 WGCH. This is Carrie Lutz, and you're listening to the Financial Survival Network, which is brought to you by Miles Franklin. They've been in business selling gold and silver for over 20 years, and I'm a customer because when you buy, they ship. For more information, find them on the web at milesfranklin.com or give them a call at 800-822-8080 and get a free quote. If you don't know whether it's the good guys against the bad guys, if you don't know who the good guys are and what they're trying to do for you, Bix Weir, he's been writing about good versus evil in the metals markets, in the economy for years now. He's with us. Hey, Bix, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Carrie. It's good to be with you again.
Great to have you on. We've both been really busy lately. You've had a nonstop stream of postings to your site, and there's a lot going on, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, now's the time where it's all happening. You see it happening in Europe. You see it happening in the U.S. You see it happening in the political scene. It's kind of all coming down to this summer.
Yeah. So you think the collapse is almost upon us, huh?
Yeah. It feels like we're at the top of a bridge on a bungee jump, just nervous and waiting to drop. And that day should come, in a few weeks. It looks like Greece is going to have a little vote this Saturday, and, who knows where that's going. And there really are no plans for Greece to leave the euro. So nobody really knows what's going to happen after that.
The euro looks like, to me, it's outlived its usefulness. They're going to have to come up with something to replace it. And I don't see, maybe all these countries are willing to give up their sovereignty and let Germany run them, but that doesn't seem very likely to me.
It isn't really. It was kind of destined to fail anyway when a country gives up its sovereignty to, their monetary sovereignty to central control, which was done with the euro. You knew at some point these countries have been battling wars for years. There's no way they're going to agree on how to, conduct themselves monetarily.
And Milton Friedman said it so long ago that this thing was going to blow up. He totally called it. And everybody goes back now to the Friedman interview where he said it'll exist for 5 to 10 years and then it'll just break up. And here we are. But where does that leave all the fighting going on here with the Federal Reserve, with gold and silver, and the paperstocracy, if you will? Well,
you can't have a euro implode and the rest of the fiat money system stay intact, because mainly the derivative situation, maybe half of those or 3/4 of the quadrillion derivatives are based on European credits, European interest rate swaps, all kinds of stuff in Europe. And it's JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, all those big names are in there. So, that's why you're seeing Jamie Dimon come out with that announcement that they had a $2 billion plus loss. And, from word on the street is, it's up to around 10 billion and will continue to climb. That JP Morgan owns 70 trillion in derivatives. There's no bank in the world that can handle any kind of hiccup in that market. And it just happens to be the biggest, largest, number one market rigger, JP Morgan, that is having problems. So it'll be interesting when Jamie Dimon testifies in front of Congress, I think later in this week, as to what he says, because I think that'll be kind of the tipping point on, who to blame for the coming crash.
Jamie Dimon testifying in Congress is kind of like when the boss comes down and hangs out with the lackeys in the cafeteria and has a plate of pasta with them. They work for him, right?
They do, and in the softball questions that will come out, the key is that it's going to shine a light on the situation. And not all of Congress works for the banks. There are people working within Congress to gain our sovereignty back, but it's not going to be easy. And what they want to do now is get the focus and the spotlight pointed right on the banking problem, right on the derivatives, right on the market rigors, so that when all this goes down and we go to our bank and we can't get any money out and we lost our 401k and everything's all a mess, we can look at the bankers and say, we have the culprit. They're right here. Let's go after them and change the system.
Well, the system is going to change no matter what happens here. And any thoughts of a gradual, easy transition are kind of gone now, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And, in my road to Roota work, yes, this has always kind of been the plan, would be to create such a massive derivative bubble and banking fraud bubble that it collapses and all electronic assets are wiped clean, because each one of the banks go down and all of a sudden nobody has any, assets at all. This is the first time in history that people have believed that electronic blips in a bank, with a bank or in a bank account, were real assets. And it's really unique in the history of monetary systems throughout the world. And it's the first time it's been since the mid 70s, since we went on computer assets, basically, debits and credits from banks. So yeah, it's crazy. And I'm really afraid that the world's going to wake up one morning just completely shocked that everything they had in their bank account 401k is going to be gone, completely wiped clean.
Talk about a wake-up call, huh?
Yeah, but there's no way out of our debt system. So this is really the only solution to all these problems that they try to put Band-Aids over. If you wipe all electronic assets and electronic debt away, we can really start fresh, start again. And the 99% that are in debt right now will no longer be in debt.
So we're talking pretty much it's just going to be a big debt jubilee where all debts are forgiven, because the guys who keep track of all the debts, the banks, are going to collapse and pretty much fade into oblivion.
It kind of, but remember, if we have a debt jubilee, we also have an asset jubilee where all the electronic assets are gone as well. Because, one person's debt is another person's asset. So,
Right.
All the mutual funds and people who own the debt of Greece and things like that, who are going to walk away from their debt or get forced away because of the monetary crash, those assets will leave as well. It's kind of like a complete erasure of all electronic monetary forms. It's going to be really, really interesting.
I'm convinced that the debt jubilee is coming, and it's going to require complete elimination of the old system and creation of a totally new system, because there's going to be credibility issues, confidence issues. Who's going to trust fiat currency once they see pretty much all modern assets kind of vaporize?
Oh, yeah. And who's going to trust the powers that be? Who's going to trust the central bankers? You're going to see a massive loss of trust. But every time in recorded history, when there is a failure of a fiat currency, and there's been like 3,000 of them, every single time it's gone back to a physical gold and silver standard. And I know a lot of people, don't like that idea, but the gold and silver standard, nobody has to choose that. People have always gone back to it because they know that it's scarce, it's a hard asset, and there's nobody else in charge of it except the citizens of whatever country you're in.
There's a lot to be said for it. Just think the transition is going to be hellish, and
yes, definitely.
I don't know how you prepare for it. That's what I've been trying to figure out. That's what I've been trying to help you with. You who are listening, you who are going to bear the brunt of this, how do you prepare for it? And aside from owning gold and silver and some other basic preparation, I'm not sure there's really any way that any of us can totally prepare for it.
There's really not, other than getting your head around, this transition is coming. It's going to be really big and really crazy. And there's going to be a lot of people not knowing why it happened or how to get out of it. And if your listeners have in their back pocket, well, here's what happened. Here's how these derivatives grew up to be such a gigantic bubble. And here's how these bankers came into power. And looking forward, if we go to instead of a debt-based system, we go to an asset-based system, that would be much better for any community. We can start small scale, local towns and communities. It doesn't have to be run by the federal government. Really hang out with your local friends and family and neighbors, and everybody kind of will be regenerating on their own, which is kind of the way the U.S. grew up in the first place, with the state power over the federal government and things like that. It's kind of going back to the Constitution and saying, this is a much better way to live than what we're doing right now.
I'm totally with you on that. I'm just reading something here. Spain bank's rescue fails to restore confidence. So once confidence is gone, it's very difficult to ever get it back again. And then that's when the search for the new system and people divorcing themselves from the old system, that's when it really takes off.
That's exactly right. And I heard rumors today that a couple banks in Italy have basically stopped the ability to withdraw money. So it's kind of starting already in Europe, and probably next week it'll kick into high gear, and then it'll only take a few weeks till it gets over to the U.S. and all the banks start. They'll probably put limits on you can only take $300 out of the bank at a time because we don't want to run on the bank, and then everybody's going to run to the bank.
Yeah, obviously we'll see what happens because people in the U.S. are a little more conditioned due to the FDIC and the federal intervention in any failing institution, the government's intervention that has stopped people from losing money other than the largest depositors. So they're more confident, and they have this misguided, mistaken, almost perverse belief that the government is going to save them. And
it's
how can
funny.
you believe that?
You're exactly right. And the FDIC, you got to understand that the FDIC does not have any money. They are just as broke as the federal government. So when when this happens, everybody's going to go to the FDIC. The FDIC already had to go to Congress for, I think it was $500 billion. They're going to have to go back to Congress, and Congress is going to have to decide how much money to put where and if they want this system to be going forward, because all the banks are going to be saying, you got to bail us out because all these customers need their FDIC insurance. And truthfully, people are not willing to stand up and let the banks get off scot-free on this one. Yeah. We have learned over the last 4 years. This is kind of why it's happening now. It's kind of been set up to work this way. We've learned everything we need to learn over the last 4 years, and people are ready to stand up and say, no, we're not going to give the banks another penny.
Yeah, amen to that, because talk about good money after bad, talk about wasting, destroying wealth. All these banks seem to be able to figure out how to do is how to figure out the next greatest way to lose money and then go hat in hand to your government and have you bail them out. And that is anti-capitalism. That is the worst of the worst, and it has to stop at some point.
You're exactly right. And it's interesting. Someone was telling me they now teach courses in college called financial engineering, where it teaches you how to structure derivatives and how to get around the legal loopholes, how to get around the IRS and set up offshore accounts. I mean, it is completely out of control, but it is baked into our system. And once it cracks, which I think is coming really soon, you're going to see all the 99% of Americans stand up and say, no more. We are done with this. We're going to return to our Constitution. We're going to go back to gold and silver as money. And then we're going to reallocate cash amongst the citizens to get us started.
Yeah, which is